9:10, and normally we check in with Kat Neville earlier in the day, but timing being what it is, traffic being what it is, we pushed her back to 9 o'clock. Plus, she's got big news. She's sponsored by our friends at Twisted Tree Steakhouse from the Cyberg family at Watson and Lindbergh and Sunset Hills. Their one-year anniversary just passed. Business is going strong thanks to Jimmy Christo, good man over there running things. Call them 314-394-3366 or twistedtreesteakhouse.com. Good morning, Kat Neville.
Good morning.
Big news coming out of NevilleCom, I guess. NevilleCom.
It is NevilleCom.
Her media conglomerate. First there's Martha Stewart, now there's Kat Neville.
Oh, my God.
That is true.
All right, so you started Feast Magazine.
Yes.
Then you started Feast TV.
Yes.
And now comes word that you are having a new television show.
Yes.
Nationally broadcast on PBS.
Correct.
Yes.
So it's called tasteMAKERS,
Yes.
and it will debut in a year. So it's set to debut in September of 2018. So it's going to be a fall season show.
Right.
And right now I am in pre-production and funding, and then we are going to begin shooting in January. And it's called tasteMAKERS.
Right.
It's a national show that half-hour episodes, and the idea is to really explore the maker movement. So there's a lot of food television out there that gets into the kitchens with chefs,
Right.
or goes to farms, or the stand and stirs, so people doing cooking television shows, and all of that is really great. But what I wanted to do with tasteMAKERS was tell stories that aren't already being told. Mm-hmm. And these makers are the people who really kind of knit the culinary community together. So people, for example, who are making olive oil in California. Like, they have the olive groves, they press the oil. So getting to see how that olive oil is made, understanding, so not only are you going to meet the people in a documentary style piece,
Mm-hmm.
but you're going to learn how these products are made. And then we are going to get in the kitchen and cook with them. So an oyster farmer in Washington State, a bean-to-bar chocolate maker in Florida, an inland shrimp.
So you'll go with the shrimp boat to go see how the shrimp is taken out of the boat, and then at the end of the episode you'll be having shrimp.
And
I will not be on that episode, by the way.
And the idea is to make it so that it's about the makers themselves.
Right.
So I'm not going to just be talking about someone who is a shrimper. I'm going to be talking to people who develop the product and actually make something from it.
So what's interesting is, and because the world we live in today, everything is so produced, everything is mass produced, big corporations give it right to your front doorstep, right? There clearly is, and you've tapped into this, there is clearly a yearning for that communal neighborhood, market, woodworker, foodie, whatever it is, because we're losing our community because of the phone, in a sense.
Well,
and so there's the way that when you make things like this, homemade, handmade, however you want to describe it, that's what people are yearning for.
What they want is a connection.
Yeah.
And so, like, some of the makers that I'm going to profile are kind of a little more granola. Like, there's this really amazing artisan bread baker in North Carolina who is just incredible. But then there's also a tofu manufacturing company in Chicago that only uses soybeans from downstate Illinois. So it's not going to be pigeonholed to just kind of small makers necessarily. It's really talking about the maker movement as a whole,
right,
and how the individual plays a role in creating these foods.
Yeah.
Because you're right. I mean, what we want to do is understand where our food actually comes from,
and to give that sense of appreciation too.
Yeah, and
where
also
it comes from.
and just understand, like, how is it made? So in the pilot episode, I have, if you go to watchtastemakers.com, you can see the pilot. The pilot episode I developed with Gary over at Wood Hat Spirits.
I love that guy.
I love that guy too.
That guy's the best.
I know.
He makes hats out of wood.
He does.
Out of wood.
He
Yeah.
does.
Yeah.
And so he grows his own corn, and then he distills his spirits out of the corn that he grows. And so he was a perfect person to kind of serve as that pilot plus he's a friend of mine, and he was along for the ride. So essentially,
and you had some whiskey at the end of the event.
Right. So about a year ago, I approached him and said, would you be willing to kind of work with me on developing this pilot? And he very graciously did. So the half-hour pilot is out there on at the site,
All right.
watchtastemakers.com, and it was such an exciting experience for me. So about a year ago, I kind of sat down and really started brainstorming about what I wanted this show to be, because what I don't want to do is repeat what's already out there. I want to give,
unlike the rest of TV.
well, I want to create something that's unique,
Right.
and tell stories, that haven't already been told, and open people up to something that they just haven't really necessarily seen before. And being able to do this on a national level, we do a lot of that regionally with Feast, but when you really look at what's happening in food media nationally, there's something like Feast really isn't out there.
Yeah, they all follow. There's a formula. They follow the formula, and there's nothing new. Kelly and I were talking about that before you got here. Talk about the Channel 9 infrastructure, because this is interesting, because a lot of people don't know how it works, and it's a wonderful way for quality programming to sort of to bubble up from the local angle.
Absolutely. So Jack Galmich, who is the CEO and president of 9 Network, he really encouraged me to develop this pilot. And so it really was through him that all of this was made possible. So I worked on the pilot and presented it to American Public Television. It's called APT. They are the distribution arm for PBS. So PBS, it's kind of like CBS or NBC. You're an affiliate station. And so APT, they distribute, for example, Rick Steves, Martha Stewart, a lot of those kind of well-known lifestyle type of shows. They distribute the majority of the content to PBS that you see on PBS and its substations like Create and all that kind of stuff. And so APT is going to be, 9 is going to be our presenting station. APT is going to be co-presenting with 9, and there are over 350 public television stations around the country. And so everything there, I am an independent producer. So they don't pay for the content. It's not the same model as like a cable station or something like that. So I'm currently in that pre-production and funding stage, lining up sponsors. And then, so it's the sponsors that fund the show, and then the show is then distributed to PBS.
Now, what's the rule? When I was on Tommy Mack's show on PBS, one of the rare occurrences when I appeared on PBS.
Here we go again.
They had so we were using clamps for the wood, and we had to stop producing or stop filming for 10 minutes while they covered up the name of the clamp.
You can't do anything that's promotional.
So, but even though the clamps were red and everybody knew what the name of the brand was, if you just covered up the name, that was acceptable.
Yeah, there are a lot of rules. It's all FCC, the Federal Communications.
Right.
There are a lot of rules regarding promotion, and anything that is part of PBS or part of that world, you can't directly promote anything. It has to be completely free of influence. And so there are ways to work with your sponsors to obviously to give them visibility, but not directly on the show itself. And and that's true of any show on PBS, NPR, any of that.
Can you talk about, because a lot of people think they have a great show idea, but talk about the process and how the screening process of how they choose and how they chose your show.
Well, okay, so
well, she's great. So they were like, let's take that.
Well, when I did talk to APT, I mean, I got a little choked up on the phone, I have to tell you, when we had this big conference call, because they were like, we screen hundreds of shows, hundreds of shows, and they said, what you've developed, they believe that this show is going to have at least a 50, if not 75% clearance on all PBS stations nationally in its first year, which is very unusual. They said that typically a first-year show would get maybe a 40% clearance, but they think that they really believe that that tastemakers will become kind of a core PBS brand as the seasons go on. And they said that what you're looking for. See, I've spent my entire career building content, and what you're looking for is a strong vision from the producer, from the creator of what it is that you are trying to tell, and you have to have that kind of that central voice and the central perspective. So each one of these episodes, even though one is going to be in Texas at a charcuterie maker, and another one's going to be in Missouri at a hydroponic farm, the story arc, will be the same. And I will be that kind of that unifying, the way that we tell the story will be the same in every episode, but where we take you is going to be entirely different. So what the show's going to do is not just explore the maker movement, but also be able to explore regional American cuisine. Because when you go to, for example, Virginia, the landscape there is completely different, which in Virginia, I'm going to go to this, it's a cattle operation that also runs its own butcher shop. So they do everything from the field to the butcher shop. It's really exciting. And then when you go with me to New Mexico to see this woman who has a bee operation, not only does she do varietal honeys, but she also works with these people who have these hive operations throughout the country and helping them develop their own bee operations. Anyway, the landscape is going to be completely different. So that to me. And when you're asking what is it that is required, strong vision, a real understanding of what it is a story that you want to tell, and then working on that pilot, that platform to make sure that you kind of work out all the kinks.
When are you going to start your looking for other shows to produce?
He goes, i.e. woodworking.
No, clearly there's not enough woodworking shows. A wood taster show where you can taste the wood from different places. All right. Kat Neville, congratulations.
Thank you.
It's about time.
Thank you.
Yes.
It's about time. You've been hanging around us way too long. We've been dragging you down. Look for the show on PBS near you next fall.
Next fall.
Next fall.
Yep.
And you're back next week with a couple of restaurants?
Absolutely.
Have a good week.
Thank you.
9:21.